Fantasy managers, hello and welcome to the very first preview show for the UCL Fantasy for the 2021 and 2022 season. Today I'm joined by the Guru, as me and him are going to go through the must-have players to have in your teams and all sorts of things UCL Fantasy. We'll take you through our draft teams as well. We touched on it briefly on Friday night with the FPL team selection podcast, but we've got our undivided attention on UCL Fantasy for today's show. So Guru, you're in a Barcelona shirt today, no Spurs shirt for you, no Newcastle shirt for me. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, look, I'm great, Elliot. Just so excited for this Champions League fantasy. You know, it's give me a few throwbacks to, the Euro fantasy we just did, and yeah, can't wait. Obviously, a different rule set to FPL, and just so much talent to pick from. Obviously a bit gutted that my team Spurs aren't in it, but I'm repping the Barca shirt for this one. Love watching them play, and just can't wait for this fantasy to get underway. Love fantasy football, and this is going to be big, I think.
Yeah, we won't hold you for too long. We'll just take you through the codes and how you sort of got to enter now at the beginning, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the match day one for UCL Fantasy. So for the free mini, the code is 80DVZL5S06. And if you want to join the paid league, it's only 10 Aussie dollars. There's a cash pool of 250 Aussie dollars or 150 Great British pounds. So head to www.e-sportslive.com.au/FPL Addicts for all the details on how to join in there. And Guru, 10 Aussie dollars, it's not much. It's like the Euros. The Euros League was very competitive. We ended up getting a lot on our free mini and our paid mini, so it was a really good experience, wasn't it? And obviously it was just good fun, and it filled the void. And as we've said, you build your team for UCL, you don't have to think about it till February after the group stage is done. So it's a really good opportunity to get some more fantasy into you, isn't it?
Oh, this is a great opportunity. It's a good, you can get some good fantasy experience, something a bit different to FPL. $10 to enter the paid league. It's really good value. I can't wait for it. I think the rules are really interesting in this Champions League fantasy, similar to the Euros. You can change your captains, you can change your teams, so you get a lot more flexibility, and you can kind of set and forget. You play your 6 match days, and then you leave your team till February, and you can kind of rest on it. So it's a really flexible game, and you get to pick amongst the best players in world football. So it's just exciting stuff.
It absolutely is, and I'll bring up my share screen now so we can start going through the group stages. As I said, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of things. So I think the first group that we've got to go through, Guru, is Group A. It's probably going to be brandished as the group of death for this tournament. I think Man City, PSG, Leipzig, and Club Bruges. It would take a miracle for Bruges to somehow survive this. You'd think, wouldn't you?
Yeah, look, I agree. I think Bruges are definitely the team there where you'd potentially think, well, they're bottom of it now. You'd probably anticipate that's where they're going to stay once all the games are done as well. And then the likes of City, Paris, and Leipzig in there. You've got the kind of, they call it like the oil classico between City and PSG, and then Leipzig have kind of come in from nowhere with Red Bull backing them. So it's going to be a really tasty group, this one, and there's a lot of talent in a lot of these clubs, and I can't wait for this one.
Yeah, and Bruges obviously are without their star striker from last season and the season before, Dennis. I remember when they played Real Madrid a couple of seasons ago. He's obviously at Watford now, so they are without him as well. And it doesn't look like they've strengthened too much. So it is going to be a difficult one for them. But in terms of the rest of the group, Guru, PSG are obviously, I would say, probably the favourites on paper to go on and win this tournament. There's a lot of quality. Mbappe, Neymar, Messi. The list really goes on. But in terms of the assets, do you want to overhaul on PSG? They do have a fairly tough group, and if they're playing Man City and the likes of Leipzig on the first couple of game weeks, it might be a bit difficult for them. So do you think it's a smart strategy to go with as many PSG players as you can?
Look, I think from an attacking perspective, they're going to score goals in most games. So I think you'd want to be looking at the likes of Messi, Neymar, of course, from an attacking perspective. And then I think with their fullbacks, are going to get forward. You've got Hakimi in there. I think, you could probably maybe overload on at least 2 of them. As PSG, I think they're a fixture-proof side, regardless of who they play. I'd expect them to, qualify comfortably, and get a lot of points for us. So, I'd be definitely looking at PSG players if you can fit them in.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Man City, they need no explanation. We know them all too well. It's not just Pep Roulette for FPL, it's also Pep Roulette with the Champions League as well. And, that sort of just exacerbates, Pep and his ability, to just rotate these players out and makes it so much harder for fantasy managers. But there are a couple of assets from last season that I just want to touch on ever so quickly. Your man, Ilkay Gundogan, had a brilliant campaign in the Champions League last season. Man City obviously were finalists in the end, came up short against Chelsea in the final, but it's those sort of budget midfielders like Gundogan that you've got to sort of try and find a way to incorporate in your team because there's so much value in the forwards guru. So do you think, the likes of your Gundogans and those sorts of players for Man City are going to be good value in this group?
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I think Gundogan has a huge chance of doing well in this because, you're going to potentially get some set piece threats from him. He's got an eye for goal. And also in this Champions League format, you get a point for every 3 ball recoveries. And, Gundogan's known to, he wins the ball back quite quickly. A lot of those Man City players do. I think Gundogan, type of player that you'd get a lot of value out of in this comp. And I think also we see a lot of rotation in the Premier League from Pep. The players that might not play on a weekly basis in the Premier League, your Mahrez's, your Sterling's, they're definitely ones to keep an eye out from City, I think, in this comp.
Yeah, it just makes it that little bit more, difficult and easy because you can sort of take a guess with the players that are rested on the weekend that you'd like to hope they'd be played midweek in the Champions League. But RB Leipzig are the third team that I want to discuss, and there's not too much to discuss about them these days. I was talking to Ollie about it last night on the watch along. They sort of just get everything poached by Bayern Munich these days. They're sort of the feeder club, if you will, to them. So they've lost a lot of their quality. But do you see them sort of finishing in that third position? Not too much about UCL Fantasy for them, in my opinion. Do you sort of see it the same?
I think so. I think Man City and PSG squads are just so strong. It's going to be very tough for Leipzig, I think, to come into that top 2. They've obviously lost a bit so recently to Bayern Munich, who was one of their star players. So Werner the season before, who was really good for them. So I think it's going to be very tough for Leipzig. Look, they've still got a lot of good players, but I think for them to come out of this group in the top 2, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, I think the group as it stands now, the only change I would make is put PSG on top, and I think that's probably the way that Group A is going to finish. But as we've said, a lot of good fantasy assets in that group. If we move on to Group B now, Guru, it's another fairly solid group, fairly competitive. It's not got the world beaters of the PSGs who probably have the best team on paper in the world at the minute. But Atletico Madrid, Liverpool, they're 2 teams that aren't going to be easy to beat for Porto and AC Milan. And I want to talk about Atletico Madrid first because I've noticed when I was building my team, there's a fair few sort of cheap defenders from Atletico Madrid, the 4.5 millions that they play with a back 3 these days. So there's a lot of value in AC Milan's defenders, and obviously they are known to be a fairly defensive side. So do you think there's a lot of sort of maybe hidden gems in that Atletico Madrid team?
Oh yeah, of course. We all know how Diego Simeone likes to play. He's a very defensive manager. He keeps it tight. Sides are always very strong and tough to beat. So, there's definitely going to be a couple of, hidden gems, a couple of players to look out for in that defence for Atletico. Liverpool games will be tough, but you'd probably expect them to be quite tight as well. So, there's definitely some clean sheet potential here from Atletico.
Yeah, absolutely. And Liverpool probably the only team that I can see spoiling their parade in this group. They've got the likes of Mohamed Salah. Diego Jota had a great campaign in the Champions League last season. I remember his hat-trick against Atalanta. It's those sort of midfielders, I think, for Liverpool. And, the likes of Fabinho at 5.5 million that are going to be some really good value. But do you think Mohamed Salah is sort of an essential player to have in your teams?
I think if you can fit him in and can afford him, I think, he's one of many. But looking at this group, I think the Porto fixture, possibly even the Milan fixture, I've seen some amazing Liverpool versus AC Milan games down the years. Obviously got the 2 Champions League finals, Istanbul. They're always pretty open affairs. So, I can see Salah, grabbing goals in this comp just like he does in the Premier League. So, it could be a pretty essential pick.
Yeah, he seems to score for fun these days. And as Daniel said, Atletico Madrid have a crazy squad this season, unreal depth. And I agree with you. I was looking at their lineups when I was building my team, and they seem to rotate a fair bit, and they seem to be able to afford to because they're still getting the results that they intend to as well. So I think they're definitely a team that maybe aren't going under the radar, but definitely one to look out for, especially their defenders, I would say. And obviously the likes of Antoine Griezmann, Guru, has just transferred back. The Luis Suarez is absolutely brilliant players that are going to, I'm sure, score goals in this competition, you'd like to think.
Yeah, look, you just raised a great point too there with Suarez. We're going to have Suarez returning to Anfield with Atletico Madrid. I know he's returned there with Barcelona before, but that's going to be brilliant. And got Griezmann in there as well. So yeah, two really good striking options. From an Atletico perspective. So yeah, it's really going to be a really exciting group, I think, this one.
Yeah, and as Jack's just said in the live comments, let us know what your thoughts and what we're saying, and any questions that you may have, drop them in the live comments. He says Trippier's at 5 million and Correa is at 7 million. They're two brilliant assets as well. Trippier, you obviously get the set piece threat and everything like that, the free kicks, the corners. So I think he's a really good option. But I do think with Atletico Madrid, there's a lot of 4.5 million sort of the centre backs that they've got, which also pose a similar threat. But I think Trippier at 5 million is a brilliant shout. But FC Porto, Guru, do you see? I can see them probably finishing bottom of this group if I'm completely honest. Do you think they can do anything here? And, is there any sort of assets that you've had your eye on that you think could be worthwhile?
Look, I've actually not looked too much into the Porto fancy assets so far. If I'm being honest, I've kind of more looked towards sort of heavy hitters, been attracted to the big guns. So there's not too many from Porto that I would say are going to go into my side. I think it could be a scrap between third and place between them and AC Milan, to be honest.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. One of those two you'd probably think is going to be dropping down into the Europa League. But as you mentioned, AC Milan, we've had a lot of brilliant games with Liverpool in the past, but they're definitely not the team that they used to be, are they? They've definitely fallen off a fair bit. They signed Giroud in the summer for Kaya Tomori, transferred there last season. So they're trying to strengthen and build something. They actually did fairly decent in the Serie A last season as well. So you don't expect them to finish in the top two in this group, but they've got a couple of assets. I'll definitely be keeping my eye on Olivier Giroud. He was brilliant for Chelsea in the Champions League last season. I know as an ex-Arsenal and Chelsea man, you're probably not going to be too keen on him, but do you think he's going to be a good fit for a lot of people's teams?
Look, I do. I think obviously he's had the history of playing for the two London rivals of my club, but from a fancy perspective, he always delivers. He grabs goals. And he's always a very good priced asset as well. So, yeah, I do like his potential. There's obviously Zlatan in there as well. So, that's going to be massive in this group. You've got some just unbelievable talent in this group. So, but Giroud for me, not a bad differential type of player. Potentially a bit of enabler because it was a lot cheaper than those premium strikers that we've seen so far in this game.
And that really is, the essence of it. Was the essence of the Euro Fantasy, and I think it's the essence of the Champions League one as well, Guru, isn't it? It's the really expensive strikers that you've really got to have in your teams for these sort of tournament-style games, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Especially when you've got the option to rotate your captain. So, on the first sort of match day of the match day, you can have a premium asset as your captain, and then there's fixtures the next day. If he doesn't do so well, you can rotate the captain straight back onto another premium, and you've got that safety of knowing, you've got plenty of big hitters in your team. So, that's the great thing about this game. There's just so many quality premium options as captain. So, yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah, it's definitely quite refreshing to see. So that's sort of Group A and Group B, and they're two very competitive groups with a lot of big teams in them. A group which might be a little less big in terms of the teams and everything like that. They don't have the big hitters of PSG and whatnot. They've got Borussia Dortmund, Ajax, Besiktas and Sporting. But, people shouldn't sleep on this group, should they, Guru? It's there's a lot of good fantasy potential in here. Maybe not in terms of the quality of the matches compared to the other groups, but it's going to be a really good group for fantasy, do you think?
Oh, I think it's going to be a brilliant group. Obviously, you look at, Dortmund, really expansive style of play, good to watch. They've got Haaland in there. I think we've mentioned a few times, and obviously on the Instagram, I'd be very surprised if he's not at near 100% ownership, just with the, his style of play, the amount of goals he scores. He's just a freak, isn't he? He's phenomenal. Ajax, again, great football inside. They play great football. Lots of good options in their team too. Besiktas, I think they've got, is it Yilmaz up front? He's a big threat. And then you've got Sporting Lisbon, who obviously won the Portuguese league last season. And they've got a great style to them. So it's a really exciting group, and I think there's going to be FPL potential, throughout this group. Lots of enablers, lots of sort of lesser players, other than obviously Haaland. I'd probably say the other sides, and even other players at Dortmund, probably aren't going to be that premium price range. So there's a lot of good enablers to come from here. There's someone obviously big in our Euro fantasy at Dortmund, Thomas Munir as well, is a bit of a good defender to look at, fullback. So it's going to be a big one. Obviously, we've seen then Haaland greater than Pele. So another exciting open group. I can't wait for this one. I think this is going to be big.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Dortmund as well, I was looking at it, and a little bit of an enabler sort of midfielder. They've got Marco Reus, and I know he's getting a bit older now, but, he's playing a lot of the games for Dortmund this season. And I think personally he could be quite a good option to have. They've lost Jadon Sancho this summer to Man United, so they've got to have that creative sort of spark in their midfield. And, Reus has been such a brilliant player for Dortmund for so long, just ruined by injuries, unfortunately. But do you think he might be a decent option, Guru?
You know what? Obviously, we'll cut ahead. He's actually on my list when we go through our differentials for, later on in the pod. He's actually on there. So you've managed to guess one already. He's 3% owned. He's 8 million. I think he's a big differential. He's obviously the captain there. Takes games by the scruff of the neck. I think he's a brilliant option in what we're expecting to be a very open group. So I love that choice on Marco Reus.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's worth mentioning with Dortmund as well, they've got a couple of goalkeepers that are actually quite cheap as well. And for a team which are fairly solid defensively, I think it's a good idea to look at the Dortmund goalkeepers, who's been playing in their matches and stuff like that, and to decide from there. But for the rest of the group, Guru, there's not really too much that excites you. Then I'm going to assume Ajax might have a couple of players. I know Daniel's mentioned Antony, their right winger, Brazilian, so he's definitely the razzler of the group, as he said. So, is there too much from Ajax that sort of excites you?
There is. I've got there's another sort of differential pick, so I'll discuss later. But someone in my team, Alvarez, is someone that's going to be a bit of an enabler at 4.5 million. Seb, who's a big member of our Discord, talks about him a lot in the Champions League chat. He's obviously mentioned Haller as well. He seems to be obviously ex-West Ham. Didn't have the best time at West Ham, but he's banging in the goals at Ajax. They've got Stecklenburg in goal at the moment at 4.5 million. Whilst their other goalkeepers out with a ban. So there's definitely some big prospects from this Ajax team, which excites me.
Yeah, and Besiktas, I know we talked about on Friday, and you were saying that, on Wednesday last week with their fixtures and everything, and you were saying that, Turkey's a very tough place to go, but, in the realms of fantasy, Besiktas these days, there isn't too much that would excite me, and I'm going to assume it's going to be fairly similar for you, Guru.
Yeah, look, I think there's obviously Yilmaz in there, the big centre forward. It was a big one on our radar for the Euros, but he didn't quite pull anything off. So I think other than him, there's probably not too much else I'd look out for from an FPL perspective, to be honest.
Yeah, and then Sporting, is it much the same? There's not too much quality there. As Hamish has said, they did lose Nuno Mendes. Their left back, quite highly rated by a lot of people online. So I think they're probably going to be the team to be in and around that bottom of this group. Do you think, Guru?
Not too sure. I think obviously they were a strong side in the Portuguese league last year. They got a talented up-and-coming manager. And I think Sarabia, who was another one from the Euro Fantasy, it was really good for Spain. He's in that Sporting team, and I think he's one to definitely keep an eye out for. I don't think they'll kind of be bottom of this group. I think probably looking more towards that maybe third, second at a push, possibly. But I'll definitely be keeping eyes on Sarabia in this Sporting team for sure.
Yeah, he was a brilliant enabler for the Euro fantasy, especially in those sort of later stages with how far Spain progressed. But that's Group C. And there's just one more group that I want to discuss with you, Guru. It's Group F, and it would be rude not to discuss this group considering Man United do have Mr. Champions League himself, Cristiano Ronaldo. So look no further. I know he's probably going to be in a lot of people's teams even before he made his debut for Man United last night. But I think there's going to be a fairly high ownership for Cristiano Ronaldo. Would you agree with that assessment, Guru?
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, he loves the Champions League and scores buckets of goals in this. And I think he's got some sides in there. Villarreal, a pretty stubborn side. Man United will remember them from the Europa League final. Obviously, went to penalties, and Villarreal got one over on United in that one. But Atalanta, very attacking team, expecting an open game for Man United when they play them. And then you've got the young boys in there as well, sort of traditional basement boys in the Champions League. They kind of sort of finish bottom of most groups. So I'm expecting Ronaldo to get some returns in a lot of these fixtures. Villarreal as well, he would have played against him a lot in Spain, scored against him plenty of times. So, really excited about Ronaldo's prospects in this one.
Yeah, and I want to talk about Marla from Atalanta. He was such an absolute hero for the Euro fantasy at 4.5 million. He was absolutely brilliant for them. I'm sure he's going to be in a lot of people's teams as well. He was a left wing back almost. He was playing left wing most of the time for them, and he was absolutely brilliant for Denmark at the Euro. So do you think he can recreate that in the Champions League this season?
Yeah, I think so. I've obviously heard he's still doing the business at Atalanta this season. He's getting forward. He's getting on the end of things, assists and whatnot. So, really good value pick, I think. And Atalanta have got plenty of good options. So it's definitely a team to keep an eye out.
Yeah, I think so too. They're known to cause a couple of upsets, and they've got a fairly decent squad and can definitely dominate a couple of games in this group, I think. And then for Villarreal, I think Gerard Moreno is the one that springs to mind for me. He was another one which was fairly decent for the Euros. He was definitely overshone by Alvaro Morata, but is there anyone else from Villarreal that you think is worth having a look in?
Yeah, look, there's a few options actually. I think from this Villarreal team, you've got Asenjo in goal. Pau Torres, who was a big one in the Euros as well. There's one Foyth who had a really good Europa League campaign last year for Villarreal. He gets up and down that right hand side. Paco Alcacer as well. So there's some big options in this Villarreal team. But yeah, I'd probably say sort of one Foyth, Pau Torres, and Gerard Moreno are kind of sort of the three that stand out for me.
Yeah, I think so too. And, obviously we're going to talk about the fixtures of the first match day because it's definitely important to know that. As the Guru was saying before, it's the same as the Euros. You can change your captains and you can make your subs mid-match day. So it's important that you field all the players playing on the first match day in your team and probably stick the armband on someone who's playing then as well. So, just looking at this, you've got the likes of Man United, Sevilla, Barcelona and Bayern, a lot of brilliant games on this first match day, Guru. So it's really important that, when people are making their teams, they're making sure that these players are on their field, even if they don't think they're going to score as many points as someone playing on the second match day, because we saw it with the Euros, you never know. And it was just so important to make sure that the people playing, you sort of have to put them in your team in chronological order almost, don't you?
Yeah, look, that's one thing about this is you got to really make sure, when the fixtures are on, what match day, because, you don't want to put your team out, have all your players playing on sort of the Wednesday games, and then all your Tuesday players on the bench, because obviously you can rotate and sub. So there's a bit of planning involved, but yeah, it's it's all part and parcel of the fun of this type of game.
Yeah. So do you think Ronaldo is going to be a fairly captained, high captain player on this first, match day against young boys, Mr. Champions League? You'd like to think he'd be one of the top, people with the armband on him for the first match day, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think he'll bag a goal or two in this one for sure. These fixtures, he scores for fun in. So I think Ronaldo is going to be a very high captaincy pick for this game.
Yeah, and I want to just quickly touch on Sevilla because we didn't touch on them in any of the groups. But we were talking about your man Eric Lamela the other day, and he's been getting off to a fairly good start for Sevilla, and I know he's definitely an enabler in that midfield. They've got the likes of a Campos, and they've got a fairly decent side. They have lost Luke De Jong to Barcelona, which my head is still trying to process after watching him at Newcastle all those years ago. But the move has been made, so Sevilla are a team with a lot of cheap assets as well. I think Guru, and they're definitely sort of an enabler team in this competition.
Oh, hugely. Obviously, you've mentioned a couple there, which are exciting. They've also got Diego Carlos. For those that play FIFA and FIFA Ultimate Team, he's very talented on that game. So if he can replicate that in UEFA Champions League Fantasy, we're going to have a top asset enabler on our hand. He's only about 4.5 million as well. So Seville got stacks of good players in this side. So really liking what they have to offer.
Yeah, me too. And then probably the game of the first match day is Barcelona-Bayern Munich. So do you think, is it a smart idea I know myself, I've gone with Lewandowski in my team, which we will touch on in just a little bit, but, they sort of do clash on the first match day, which might put a fair few managers off. But do you think it's important that, people still have these players in their team, even if they don't think that, their first fixture is the most easy game?
I think so. Obviously, you only get 2 transfers per match day, I believe, and there's a couple of chips and stuff that you're going to have to navigate, but you're still going to want some Bayern Munich players at some stage during this group. Barcelona, look, they're not the Barcelona of back in this time when this shirt come out. There's a big difference in their squad and their lineup now, but I'd still be wanting to try and get some of the Bayern players in if you can.
Yeah, and Daniel's just said that he does have 3 Bayern players. He's got Alphonso Davies, Benjamin Pavard and Manuel Neuer, so he's putting a lot of hope in that Bayern Munich defence. And as you said, they're definitely not the Barcelona of old, similarly to AC Milan, as we mentioned before. So I think it's a fairly safe option to go, more Bayern weighted for that game. But that's the first match day, and just a reminder, you want to field all those players, even if you think that players from this second match day aren't going to, perform as well. It's so important that you do field them and stick your armband on someone who's playing in those first set of fixtures. But the second day, Guru, I think for me, if my captain does blank on the first day, that armband is going to go straight on Erling Haaland for the second set of fixtures, and I think it's quite hard to look past that.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot of captain's armbands in Haaland if there is a blank from maybe a Ronaldo, if that's who you've gone with on the first set of games. But obviously there's Paris in there too, so you've got Neymar, Mbappe, and Lionel Messi. So there's definitely a few big options. But I think Haaland's going to be sort of the main one for this fixture for most people.
Yeah, and if it's not Haaland, as you've said, it's going to be probably one of those PSG players that you've got in your team. If you've got Messi up front or Neymar or, the Mbappes, those sorts of players against Club Brugge, you could imagine that one might get a little bit ugly for the Belgian side. So do you think if it's not going to be Haaland in your team, you should probably definitely go with a PSG player if you can find one, just for that captaincy, fullback almost, if you will, on that second set of fixtures?
I think so. Obviously Messi, he's done lots of big things in the Champions League, big player. So, it's not a bad vice captain option to Haaland, is he, Lionel Messi? So, PSG is plenty of talent to pick from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a quick question from you for you, Guru, from Daniel. He says, if you pick one captain, then he scores in the second game day, do you get the other captain points as well, or do you lose the points from game day 1?
So if you have your captain on the first game day, and then the next day you make a change, that's the decision. So that second day player, those points will remain, and you'll lose the ones from the first one. So, say on the first game you captain Ronaldo, he scores, gets 12 points as captain, but then you change it to Haaland on the next day, you'll lose those extra 6 points from Ronaldo, and then you bring Haaland in, and then you'll get the double points for him. So that's always the risk, and this was the big risk in Euro Fantasy. We saw a lot of times where on the first match day, first day of the round, a player might score, and then people would gamble, change it to another player, and then that player might not score. And that's the big risk that you get in this Champions League Fantasy, is potentially changing your captain. So that really makes it interesting.
Yeah, and it was a lot more difficult with the Euros because there were so many different days where games were played. So you did get a couple of goes at getting your captain pick right, but as the guru said, it's sort of a stick or twist situation. Do you keep what you've got, or do you go for potentially more spoils? It's an interesting one, but the good thing about these sort of UEFA fantasies is that you have a lot more control over your team mid-match day. It's not like FPL where it's locked in at the deadline, no changes until the next week. You definitely get a little bit more agency around your team during the match day for this one. But we'll stop talking about the fixtures now, Guru, and we'll get onto your team. I know we touched on it ever so briefly on the Friday night team selection podcast, but I brought it up on screen there now, and you look at it, you look at the forward straight away with these UEFA fantasy games, and Haaland's the first player that I'm noticing in your forward line, and is he essential? We've said it a lot, 100% ownership. He should have, shouldn't he?
I think so. It just scores every game he plays, really. So these group games, I think he's going to score a lot of goals, and really excited to be able to own him in a fantasy league game. So must have for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Daniel just asked again, Guru, can you make transfers mid-match day?
No, you can't. So you'll have your match day one, which is obviously the Tuesday night games, the Wednesday night games, and then when the match day is over, you'll have 2 transfers until the next deadline. So you can't do them during the match day, I'm afraid. It would be a cool feature if you could, but they're not that nice to us.
Absolutely not. And Daniel, you can make substitutions mid-match day as well. So if you can't make your transfers, it just sort of emphasizes that you've got to have a 15-match squad, 15 player squad. You don't want your just one starting 11 like you might do for the Premier League fantasy, but it's important to build a squad so you can have those interchanges if those players do end up blanking. But Lionel Messi is sat next to Erling Haaland, their guru, and it's starting to get a little bit unfair when you look at the forwards, just the sheer quality. Lionel Messi, as we've said, they've got Bruges on the first day. You'd be expecting a fair bit from him, wouldn't you?
Yeah, look, I think it's a game where I look at it on paper, he should really come out with a couple of goals. And, for me personally, I've gone with the, Haaland, Messi, Ronaldo combination. I just thought this could be, come towards the end of the Messi, Ronaldo era. And I wanted to get them both on a fantasy team at the same time whilst I could. So, especially whilst I've obviously joined new sides, they're not in the Liga anymore. And Messi, really looking forward to owning him and having him for this fixture. It's going to be big. I can see a couple of goals from him already.
Yeah, and Bruges, as I said, it might get a little bit ugly for them, but the armband is on Cristiano Ronaldo against young boys. I think that's a fairly safe bet. As you said, you'd expect a couple from him in that game. You'd like to hope, such a prolific player in the Champions League. So you'd be hoping for a big, nice return from Ronaldo there, wouldn't you, Guru?
Yeah, look, especially against obviously young boys. They've traditionally lost a lot of games in the Champions League when they've been in it. Lost to a lot of the big players and big teams. So, Ronaldo, I think he's got that match day, that first game on the first set of games. So, if he does struggle, then I can switch it the next night. But, I'm expecting Ronaldo hopefully to, grab a couple of goals early so there's no sort of stress about having to change my captain the next day. So, I'm expecting some returns for him in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And Moo, I think it's a really nice front three that you've got there. I'm going to assume that your midfield is fairly strong as well. But Jota, Guru, is one that we haven't really mentioned. He's a forward in this game. So, he's more of an enabler sort of striker compared to, the Haalands and the Messis, the Ronaldos and the Lewandowskis, but Benzema as well. Benzema and Jota are 2 great options if you want to go for that stronger midfield. Do you think that those 2 are fairly suitable assets?
Look, I think both of them are. Jota, obviously, I've seen how good he is in FPL. And in this, the only difference in this between FPL is, he's a striker in this game. So in FPL, he's a midfielder. We're not going to get those midfielder points out of Jota in this one, which is a bit of a disappointment. But 8 million's cheap. You can put him up there. Gives you more money to sort of spread amongst your squad, make the squad stronger. Maybe put it into some more defensive-minded players as well. And then Benzema as well. We'll talk a bit more about him later in another section. But they're both still great striking options amongst so many great striking options in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as we said, if you do want to go stronger in your midfield, I think Jota is a brilliant option to have up top. He was brilliant for Liverpool last season in the Champions League. So you never really know, how it's going to go. They've got a fairly difficult group this year, but, they're Liverpool. They always seem to find a way in these European competitions. So we'll move on to your midfield now, Guru. And Chiesa is the first man. He was such a hero for the Euro Fantasy. He was sort of, missed out on the first couple of games for Italy. Didn't really do too much, but he definitely worked his way into the tournament, and he's going to be that sort of focal point for Juventus, you'd think, wouldn't you? Ronaldo's left, there's not really too much going on, in their forwards wise. It's Dybala and Chiesa, and you favoured Chiesa. I think he's a really good option, and he's not cheap. Is he 9 million, I think?
Yeah, he's 9 million, and I think the idea around putting him in was, exactly as you said, there's no Ronaldo there now. I think there's going to be someone else there to be a bit more of a talisman. Grab the goals, take the limelight, and every time I sort of watch this guy play, it excites me. And 9 million, I wanted to have at least one, semi-premium sort of option in midfield. Obviously, I've got all my money in my attack, so I wanted one sort of midfield player. Obviously, Daniel's mentioned they're struggling a bit in the league, but I'm hoping the Champions League they can sort of come out against the likes of Malmo and might take the pressure off them a bit from Serie A, and sort of still expecting them to come out and beat the likes of Malmo, hopefully. So, I like Chiesa, I like watching him play, and he's a favourite of mine in this game.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if he's classified as a razzler by Daniel's stamp of approval, but he's definitely a very skillful player, and he lit up the Euros, so I think he's definitely a good option to have. And if we move on to the second man in your midfield in the middle, Fabinho, and a lot of people that maybe play FPL might be a little bit confused with this pick, Guru, but he's 5.5 million, and you get a point for every 3 interceptions or ball recoveries that a player makes. So I think it's a fairly decent pick to have in your team. Kante's injured at the minute by the looks of things, so there's a lot of cloud of uncertainty around that. So I think Fabinho, he's in your team purely just for the ball recoveries, isn't he, Guru? But he's a really good cheap enabler option in your midfield.
Yeah, that's it. I've got him in there. He's obviously 5.5 mil, and I just thought every 3 ball recoveries you're going to get the extra point. That's his bread and butter, is winning the ball back. And then also with Fabinho, Liverpool, I expect some tight games where they might keep a few clean sheets, so you're going to get the extra clean sheet point. And he does like the odd screamer as well, does Fabinho. He was brilliant back at Monaco in the Champions League a few years back. Obviously, brilliant for Liverpool, making a couple of finals as well. One of them, I think he was at Liverpool for the one final, which I won't talk too much about, that they won. I think Fabinho for me is really in here for his defensive recoveries, the clean sheet points, and then the odd attack and return maybe, but yeah, it's really just that option to be able to fit the big boys in up front.
Yeah, and the third man, Moose, got him in his midfield as well. He says he's got Koeman, Cruz, and Ferran Torres, and I think that's a fairly strong midfield. Kingsley Coman's one that I haven't seen in too many teams so far, but he's definitely going to be a good option against Barcelona on that first day, you'd think. But Ferran Torres, Guru, he's playing at the minute for City as a number 9, so you'd like to think that if he's playing in the Champions League, he's going to be sort of holding that position again. But even if he's not, he's been such a good player for Man City this season. And when he's been given the opportunity, like most players in that Man City team, if you give them the opportunity, they're going to perform for you because they've got so much quality in and around each other. What was the sort of thought process behind picking Ferran Torres over the likes of your man Gundogan, though?
Yeah, look, I think I just wanted some Man City coverage in there. Obviously, other than the PSG games, I like their fixtures. I think they can be quite open. And Ferran Torres is kind of the go-to man at the moment. That might change up till deadline. Pep likes to obviously rotate. Didn't play Mahrez or Sterling last night, so we might see them get the nod in the Champions League for this first game against Leipzig. But for now, he's there. I just wanted that Man City coverage, and with his positional change as a centre forward, I thought, 7.5 million, it's too good to say no to right now.
Yeah, and Sam just made the good point, or the good question to bring up. Ronaldo did score a brace, but will he start against young boys? I think, it's been a lot of debate since Ronaldo's come in to Man United. How much game time is he going to have, in his legs? He's getting a bit older now, but in my opinion, he's going to be demanding to play every single minute of every single game that he physically feels that he can, Guru. And I don't think that, too many people are going to argue with that. You'd like to think that he's going to start, and even if he doesn't, you'd hope that if he's coming off the bench, he can still, have some sort of influence on that game. But he's got the captain's armband for you. So are you backing him in to start?
100%. He'll start. Grab his goals, and then they'll give him his rest. And he did say in his interview, he's not joined Man United for a vacation. So I think he'll be forcing his way into as many lineups as possible, and I think he'll be playing in all these Champions League fixtures up until the point that Man United are secured, possibly into the next round. So, yeah, I've got no sort of qualms. I think he'll not play. I think he's certain to start in this one, especially after, his couple of goals yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we move on to your defence now, you've got Marla as the first player there, and we spoke about him before. He was so good at the Euros, and he must love the tournament style game. So Atalanta defender, he got forward a lot. Lots of goals, lots of assists at the Euros. You're hoping for the same from him in the Champions League this season then?
Yeah, 100%. I've got Marla in there purely for his, the way he attacks. I'm not expecting huge amounts of clean sheets from Atalanta. Their defence has changed a lot from last season. But I've got him in there just purely because he pretty much acts as a winger with the position that he plays in. So, yeah, really excited about having him again in a fantasy team.
Yeah, and Thomas Munir was another one of the Euros that was such a hero. I remember having him in my team for the first game, and he didn't start, but he came off the bench, and I think he got a 15-pointer in the end for Belgium. And, Dortmund have got, not an easy group by any means, but they've got a fairly, favourable sort of set of fixtures. They play Besiktas on the first game, and as you've said, Guru, Turkey's not an easy place to go, but are you backing him, maybe not for a clean sheet in this game, but do you think, attacking returns and all sorts from him?
Yeah, that's exactly how I'm looking at it. I'm looking at Dortmund. They do concede goals. They play a very attacking style of football. But, again, Munir, similar to Marla, he's pretty much an attacking player, very high up on that right-hand side. So he's really in there just for his attacking returns. And we know, as a defender, if you get a goal, you get more points. So, he's really in there because he's virtually a winger that's classified as a defender. So, yeah, another one that I can't wait to watch in this Champions League.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a question from Sam. I'll just bring it up on screen, Guru, and it's directed at you. He says, why not prefer Salah over Chiesa by making 1.5 million free from elsewhere? And I'll let you answer this one however you mean to.
Apologies. Actually, the question just disappeared off my screen for a second. Why not prefer... Yeah, look, that's a very good question. Look, if there's going to be somewhere, that I do make it available, it could be downgrading someone like Donnarumma, and having a 4.5 million goalkeeper in there. So it's actually a really, really good point. But again, it's just more so this is my initial draft. This isn't necessarily my final draft. There's probably going to be some changes. So yeah, it's actually a pretty good shout. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Salah is someone that I think is going to be big in this comp. Grabs a lot of goals, but yeah, for now it's my draft, and I've kind of built my team more so to be able to fit a squad. I think this is more of a squad game in the Champions League because you get the substitutions and the rotation and sort of the second chance, being able to pick players on the second day and sub them in. So yeah, for now I didn't want to put too much sort of money into just my lineup. I wanted to spread the money onto my bench as well. So that's probably why I've got my money spread amongst my squad. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point.
It is a good point. I think, I definitely was persuaded by Pizza Boy in our Discord. I think, he made me feel that, it's fairly essential that you've got to have Salah. So when we touch on my team in just a little bit, when we finish yours, he's obviously going to feature in that one for me. But, Cesar Azpilicueta, Guru, he's another one, he's getting a bit older, but he's going to want to play every single minute that he can. He's the captain for Chelsea. So you're going to assume that if anyone's going to play for them at the back, it's going to be him. He's fairly nailed on to start, you'd think. So they've got a fairly, not easy group in it, but it's Zenit and Malmo, isn't it? And then it's Juventus. So it's a couple of difficult fixtures for them. But, you'd like to hope that clean sheets from Azpilicueta, and he's known to pop up with an important goal every now and then, isn't he?
Yeah, that's it. And he was benched last night for Chelsea, which has obviously given me a bit of confidence that that's with the thought process of him starting in the week in the Champions League, and actually come off last night the bench and did grab the assist for a Chelsea goal. So had to get some Chelsea coverage in there with the Zenit games, the Malmo games. Clean sheet machine under Tuchel. So only 5 million as well. So I think he's a bargain for now, especially in the early games. And then again, once qualification, is possibly sewn up, and they might put a few different assets in there. But I can see him doing the business early on for Chelsea.
Yeah, and Diego Carlos is one that we discussed before, 4.5 million, fairly nailed on to start for Sevilla. So, you'd expecting a couple of nice returns from him there. Sevilla don't have the most challenging group, so it'll be interesting to see. But Donnarumma in goal, we mentioned it just before when you said you could go for a 4.5 million price goalkeeper and upgrade Chiesa. But, PSG have got such a solid defence. They've just, the team that they've got on paper is absolutely ridiculous. So you'd be expecting clean sheets all round from PSG.
100%. And Donnarumma, he's in there because obviously a bit of the Euros. And then, just expecting some clean sheets in these Bruges games, possibly even the Leipzig ones, and, in the City ones, a lot of save points. He's just such a top quality goalkeeper. And I wanted a bit more PSG coverage outside of Messi.
Yeah, I think it's fair. And if you just take us through your bench as well, Guru, as you've said, it's important to have a squad, not just to start an 11. So what's your thought process behind your bench?
Yeah, Stecklenburg is currently the number one at Ajax, whilst there's a ban for their other goalkeeper. So, it's an easy rotation option. Eric Lamella's in there. Obviously, ex-Spurs player. I just wanted some coverage from Spurs in there, as I'm not going to be able to get any from them. So he's had a great start to life at Seville, playing as a bit of a false nine at times as well. So got him in there for now. Alvarez, huge enabler, cheap player in midfield. And I've been sold by him quite a bit in the Discord by Seb, who's our resident Ajax fan. And then Roussillon, 4 million. Wolfsburg have got a fantastic defensive record under Van Bommel. So has to go in there at that price. I think he starts quite a lot of games in the Bundesliga. So, hoping to get some minutes out of him in the Champions League.
Yeah, and Moo's talking up again, Guru. He says that he thinks your front line's too expensive, and you haven't got Hakimi in your defence to sort of get you the clean sheets and the goals and the assists. So what do you make of that? Personally, I would say you've got to go strong on your forwards because they're just so important in this game, and you've got to sort of sacrifice that defence a little bit for the benefit of the strikers. But what do you sort of make of it?
Yeah, look, I think he raises a fair point, but when you're going into a tournament fantasy game like this, and you've got the likes of Ronaldo, Messi, and Haaland coming in there, they're all goal machines, and they've got great fixtures in the first round. So, for me, I wanted to go heavy on the attack. Haaland against Besiktas, Messi against Bruges, Ronaldo against Young Boys. I'll be backing them for goals and more points than what I would if I kind of downgraded them for some other assets and had Hakimi in there. So raises a fair point, but I had to go heavy on those strikers. I got great confidence in them all bagging a goal or two.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one more question before we sort of just compare our teams together. Sam says, what's your thoughts on Wijnaldum as an asset? Obviously at the Euros again, he was so good. He played in that sort of free role for the Netherlands. So what do you make of him?
Yeah, good choice. I did have a sort of think about putting him in my side. He's also someone that's quite flexible in his position. So, you might even get the odd ball recovery from him as well. But he seems to be playing a bit more attack-minded at PSG. But then, what kind of put me off is I did look at PSG's results this season, and he's not actually scored a goal yet. So, it kind of put me off, and I just thought I'll save the money somewhere else. And he's someone that I can bring in if need to be. But I think for now, Messi is more than enough PSG attacking coverage for me.
Yeah, and if that's a brilliant team that you got, Guru. There's definitely some inspiration that I'm going to be taking from your starting lineup into mine. If we just bring mine up on screen now, there's a fair few points of difference, in our team. There's a couple of similarities. We both have Haaland, we've both got Messi. We've both got Fabinho, both got Munir and Azpilicueta. But other than that, it's fairly different. I favoured Gundogan over Torres. I think that, Gundogan, he did start for City on the weekend. He was captain, so that might be subject to change. As I said, maybe I'll have to pinch a couple of your ideas, but the Alvarez enabler pick as well. There's a lot of similarities between our teams. Sort of if there's one player from my team that you think maybe that I shouldn't have in my team, who would you pick? Because I do need a bit of advice. I've been tossing and turning with it. Sleepless nights from me, Guru. I'm not sure with it. It was the same as the Euros. So if you had to give me any advice on this team, what would you sort of say?
It is a very good team. I've got to say the lineup's super strong. You've got goals everywhere. You've got penalty takers in there. You've got set piece takers. You've got fullbacks. You've got goals up front. It's quite hard. Probably so. I can't really criticise too much from that starting lineup, to be honest. Goalkeeper. You've obviously gone a bit more budget, but in a group that there's probably potential for some clean sheets for Munir. So the only thing I'd probably maybe say is maybe on the bench. Not too sure. If you have a couple of players that play on that first day and they don't get good scores, I'm not too sure if you've got much on the bench that you can kind of switch back in there, where you can be confident that you can get some heavy points. But in terms of your actual lineup, I think it's pretty spot on. Great side, plenty of goals, like I said, in midfield. You've got plenty of goals up front. You've got penalty takers in midfield. And you've got clean sheets galore and fullbacks in defence. So very good team.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think it's a very fair point, as you say. You've got to have 15 players in your squad, and as you've mentioned, off the bench, there's not too much, especially in the two midfielders aren't known to score too many goals. So if you are, starting the players on the first day, you'd probably want those defensive-minded ones that will get you the ball recoveries on that first day, and then you can bring in the heavyweights and the big point returners on the second day. But I think that's a fair assessment, and as we've said, a lot of similarities, a lot of differences in our team. So I think it's nice to see, a lot of people have got a variety of teams and picking a lot of different players. But in terms of the players that you must have in your team and the must-have assets, the differentials, we're going to head to the Guru's Guru section now. And I'm just going to let him discuss, the important players that you've got to have in your team. So we'll start with them, Guru. So one player from each position, take it away.
Yeah, let's thanks, El. I think, I'm going to start with goalkeepers, and I'm going to go with, obviously, I know I've got Donnarumma in my side, but there's another goalkeeper who's caught my eye of late and in last season's Champions League. Obviously, they won the Champions League, Chelsea, and it's going to be Mendy. Rock solid defence. They've got some nice fixtures in there. You've obviously got the Zenit games, the Malmo games, a couple of tough ones against Juve, but I can see Mendy getting a lot of clean sheets and some save points to go with. Going into defence, I've put Hakimi down. I know he's not on my side again, but he's got high ownership. PSG are an attacking side. He seems to be a very popular choice, so he's probably a sort of must-have for a lot of sides. Going into midfield, I think Mo Salah's pretty safe shout, pretty safe bet. Some of the discussion and comments we've had tonight, I think I might be, potentially getting him in my team if I can. And then striker, I think Haaland's, an absolute must-have. I love to know the justification for not owning him for people that don't own him. So, give us some comments, put some stuff in the Discord or in the comments if you don't own Haaland and why, because I would be very interested to know. So, I'd definitely say they're my 4 must-haves at this stage.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you there, Guru. I think if you don't have Haaland in your team, there's probably something going wrong, and you definitely need him. He's just brilliant, goal machine, does absolutely everything for that Dortmund team, and they are quite reliant on him as well at times. So, if they're going to be scoring goals, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be that man, the focal point of their team. So I think he's one that, as we said, he should have 100% ownership going into this competition, but there obviously will be people that won't end up picking him. But if we move on to your 3 differentials now, and we have discussed 2 of them, there's one that you've managed to keep close to your chest there. So if you just take us through your 3 differential picks, mate.
Yeah, look, the 2 we've mentioned, one Royce, 8 million, he's 3% owned, very attacking Dortmund team. He managed to get himself on a lot of the set pieces and dictates the game. So I think Royce is someone that $8 million, not bad differential, 3% owned. Benzema, another Champions League expert, always scores goals to Real Madrid. 10 million, 7% owned. So, something a bit different if you do want to sort of move away from the Messi, Ronaldo, Haaland template, or Lewandowski. And then my last one, someone who, I really, really like this player in the Champions League. Scores a lot of goals for Ajax. He's only 1% owned, which I can understand because, you've got Messi, Lewandowski, Ronaldo, all heavily owned with Haaland. But it's Dusan Tadic, really good player. I think he's on pens and set pieces as well. This is another one I've discussed with Seb, who's our resident Ajax fan in our Discord. So yeah, I think Tadic is a big differential in what's a pretty open group for Ajax.
Yeah, and I love the Tadic pick, Guru. I must say I did look at him a little bit, and I was surprised to see just how low his ownership was. Again, he's definitely for me favoured over Sebastian Haller, who also plays there. Tadic, if we take it back a couple of years, that game against Real Madrid, he was absolutely brilliant for Ajax in that season in the Champions League. Obviously, it didn't end too well for them, but it did end quite well for Spurs in that game against them, where he didn't manage to do too much for them. But I absolutely love that pick, and we've obviously discussed Royce and Benzema as well. Benzema, it's surprising to see him, as a differential pick in this competition, isn't it? Because he scored so many goals in the Champions League, so it's quite surprising to see a low 7% ownership. Does that one surprise you a lot, Guru?
Yeah, it does. It does a bit. At the same time, though, obviously Messi's in a PSG side that's just stacked with lots of talent around him, and it's just exciting to be able to have him in. You've got Haaland and Ronaldo, Lewandowski. So, it's just tough to want to break that barrier and throw in other strikers. But again, Benzema is world class. He's got a lot of pedigree. So yeah, it's slightly surprising to see him under 10% owned. I thought he might at least be sort of that 10 to 15% range at a minimum.
Yeah, absolutely. And Daniel asks you, is Tadic down as a forward or a midfielder, Guru?
Unfortunately, he's a forward, which, when I was looking at him the other day, and I was sort of sitting there thinking he's coming in my team, and then realised he was actually a forward, and I thought, I can't break that template that I want up front, and he does come in as a forward. So if he was a midfielder, he'd be in my team for sure. But still very good player, differential to have. So exciting player, 8.5 million as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that does wrap up the Guru section, Guru, and it does wrap up the podcast at the same time. So it's been a pleasure to sit down and chat with you, mate. The Champions League is this week, isn't it? So it's approached quickly. It's upon us. So it's just the reminder of how important it is to join the leagues. But Guru, you're excited, aren't you? I can tell. There's no Spurs bias for you. There's no Newcastle bias for me. It's just, get the best players that you possibly can and go for that trophy. So are you excited for it?
I can't wait. Obviously, we're running our mini leagues, and there's going to be a lot of competition, and it's going to be really, really good. I just can't wait to see everyone's teams, everyone's picks. There's just so many different options, and it's just a different style to the fantasy league. So in the Premier League, sorry. So really, really excited. I just can't wait for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reminder for the free mini, the code is 80DVZL5S06. And for the paid mini, it's $10 entry fee, $10 Aussie dollars, worth mentioning, with a 250 Aussie dollar prize pool. That's over 150 Great British pounds as well. But I thank you so much for your company tonight, Guru, and I thank everybody who watched along and dropped their comments. Let us know what their thoughts were. Remember, if you're in the Discord, get your teams in the section, get the discussion happening, and remember to like and subscribe so you never miss an upload from us. But take care, stay safe. May all your UCL fantasy dreams come true. Bye for now.